with my head up in a daze. I'm not sure if I should say this, but I'll say it anyway. Everybody tries to tell me that I'm going through a phase. I don't know if it's a phase, I just wanna feel okay, yeah. I battle with depression, but the question still remains. Is this post-traumatic stressing, or am I suppressing rage? And my doctor tries to tell me that I'm going through a phase. Yeah, it's not a phase, I just wanna feel okay, okay. Yeah, I struggle with this every day, and it's probably cause my demons simultaneously rage. It obliterates me, the sin so grates me, annihilates me. I'm about to break down, searching for a way out. I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a non-believer. I'm a popular monster. Break down, falling into love, now we're falling apart. I'm a popular monster. I think I'm going nowhere like a rat trapped in a maze. Every wall that I knock down is just a wall that I replace. I'm in a race against myself, I try to keep a steady pace. How the loop if I escape if I never close my case? Oh my god, I keep on stressing. Every second that I waste is another second sooner to a blessing I won't take. But my therapist will tell me that I'm going through a stage. Yeah, it's not a stage, I just wanna feel okay. Okay, man, you got my attention. I need to change a couple things, cause something is missing. And what if I was a lie? Tell you everything is fine. Every single I get closer to the grave. I am terrified, I'm fell asleep and I will again. Crush my car just to feel again. Let out race me, integrate me, annihilate me. Cause I'm about to break down, searching for a way out. I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a non-believer. I'm a popular monster. Break down, falling into love, now we're falling apart. I'm a popular monster. Yeah, here we go again. We're sick and tired of wandering, praying to a God that you don't believe. You're searching for the truth in the lost and found. So the question I ask is, where the fuck is your God now? Cause I'm about to break down, searching for a way out. I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a non-believer. I'm a popular monster. I break down, falling into love, now we're falling apart. I'm a popular.
I don't know. Sidney next.
Battered helmet stays home, baby. He stays home.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special edition of the Indian Nation Station pregame show. I'm AJ Ganger. With me, as always, the voice of Pickle football, Dwayne Bachman, as we get ready for all the action coming your way right after our show tonight. Tonight, it's going to be the 125th battle for the battered helmet as Miami Valley League champions Piqua Indians are traveling to Sidney tonight to take on the Yellow Jackets. The Indians do lead the series 79-39-6. Dwayne, it's going to be a huge night. Welcome to the show, by the way. We're going to be traveling up to Sidney to call this game, our second road game of the year. We have done every game except for last week's game, and we'll get into the statistics to that here soon. But, I mean, tonight is a big, big game.
Oh, I think anybody that thinks that this is going to be easy is being a little bit naive.
Yeah.
Sidney plays this tough. We're at Sidney, a big rivalry. This could be an interesting ball game. Now, if I was a bookmaker, I'd have to give Pickwa the nod. But generally speaking, you got to be very, very careful. And let's face it, Sidney doesn't have anything to lose.
No, Sidney definitely doesn't have anything to lose with a 3-2 record coming in to tonight's game. But before we talk about tonight's ball game, the Indians are coming in 5-0, undefeated. They wrapped up the Miami Valley League Championship last week at Tip City, which was a huge win and a very dominant performance, Dwayne. You had to have been there to see it.
Well, again, I was watching on YouTube trying to find out what was happening, and that wasn't easy. But you're right. Although I'm not so sure, AJ, that I was as impressed with Troy on the opener as I was Tip City last Friday night. Tip City, for some reason, didn't catch my eye.
No.
I don't know about you,
No.
but for some reason, they didn't have a spark, energy. Maybe they were coming off a game previously, and I think they were. But I'd have to say I wasn't as impressed with Tip City as I was Troy.
I really wasn't impressed with them either. Just their offense couldn't get anything going. Their defense couldn't stop our offense. I mean, yeah, we punted the ball a few times, but it was just basically dominating from the first snap, our team.
Again,
100%.
one of those cases where after the first half, it wasn't a matter who, but how many.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take a look at the scores from around the Miami Valley League last week. Sidney beat West Carrollton 32-20. Xenia with the close win against Butler 17-12. Stebbins ended up bouncing back after the loss to us, beating Fairborn 29-21. Troy got scored on by Greenville, so there's something that we can throw in their face too. They beat Greenville 42-6, and our Piqua Indians won the 28-3 final. Now, I believe us winning last week, Dwayne, was the first conference title since we won the state championship. Is that correct? Back in 2006?
That could very easily be. That could very easily be. Now, the year after we won the state championship, we went to the playoffs, but I don't know how good the record was or if we won the conference, and I think you're probably right on that.
I think I heard that from our athletic director, that us winning the Miami Valley League champion, or winning the conference this year, was our first conference title since 06. I could be wrong there, but I think that's the case.
And I think at 206 we were in the G-Walk, and that G-Walk was a whole different ball game than what we're dealing with now.
Yes, it really was. Let's take a look at some stats from last week's game. Brady Uhl was 13 of 21 passing, still very efficient at 111 yards. Karan Coleman have a game. He had 14 carries for 112 yards, 3 total touchdowns, and 9 tackles on defense. This kid was all over the place.
I think I was talking to Ed Perk someplace along the line, and I said this, and I believe this. If Karan Coleman doesn't get to the first team in the conference, I'm going to be disappointed because he's playing well on both sides of the ball. That's quite unusual, as you well know. This kid has had a dynamite season, and I tend to think he can't be overlooked when we start thinking in terms of MVP.
No, he really can't, and he's one of the most underrated players, I would say, in the entire conference or the state. I mean, this kid's got speed, he's got vision, he's got power, he's got everything that you want in a two-way player.
If you don't get him at the line of scrimmage, you might not touch him.
Yeah.
He is quick.
Yes, he is. Tanner Kemp also had 9 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. And Jarrell Lewis, 4 tackles and 2 sacks. He reminded me of Devin Bush playing for the linebacker for the Steelers, where he would end up in college, when he played in college, would be on one side of the field and somehow make the play that was on the other side of the field. Last week, that was exactly what Jarrell reminded me of.
Oh, Jarrell. Well, let's face it. Jarrell's had a heck of a season.
Yeah.
And again, let's not forget Tanner Kemp.
Yeah.
Another kid playing both sides of the ball. And I liked him. I said it from the beginning. He likes to hit. He likes to play. And give him the ball, let him run around end. If he can turn the corner, he might be hard to find, too.
Oh, yes, he is. So is Josiah Medley as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Take a look at the stats. I mean, Piqua had 291 total yards. Tip City had 20, and for some reason, Tip City decided to throw on our defense 37 times, completing 18 of those passes for 142 yards. The Indians had 36 rushing attempts for 180 yards on the ground. Tip City, 21 rushes for just 58 yards. I believe this is either the second or third week in a row the Indians have given up less than 100 yards rushing.
Oh, let's face it, all the statistics are impressive. I didn't realize that total yards that Tip City had 200. Watching the game, it didn't seem like they were moving the ball very well. Maybe it was some of those passes that helped, but 21 rushing attempts, 58 yards. Again, we're talking about the offense.
Yeah.
We're talking about the defense. We got the kicking game. Our punter has done very, very well.
Yeah.
Again, it's all going to come down to, I think, turnovers and penalties.
Yeah, and I mean,
because I can't think of anything else, AJ.
I can't really either. I mean, the Indians did only have 5 penalties, and they were some of them were ticky-tack, but some of them I could see. I mean, it was a very clean game. I don't think there was a timeout taken until 2 or 3 minutes left to go in the half.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a game dominated by mistakes because there just weren't very many. But the Indians, they just, as we've watched these first games, AJ, let's face it, we were 5-0. We should be 5-0. Let's face it, our Indians are playing very, very well, and anybody that says they aren't has not been to the stadium.
And they haven't even watched our live broadcast either, because you can see it on a screen. I mean, we're watching the games from in here, and I get to see the kids every day here walking throughout the halls of the school, and it's just a completely different mindset from the last couple of years. I mean, these kids, they're focused. They know they have natural-born leaders in the locker room who get these guys going, make sure everyone's focusing, make sure everyone's watching the right film, doing the right things on the field, doing the right things after practice. I mean, these kids, they smell a championship, and they're going to want to go out and get one.
Well, I think that's true. And again, of course, always well coached, as we well know. They're confident, but I don't know if they're arrogant. There might be a shade difference there. These kids know how good they are.
Oh, yeah.
And let's face it, they are. They're playing terrific football, better than we've seen in a long time, perhaps. But let's face it, they deserve to have all the accolades that they've gotten because they've deserved them.
Yeah, there's a difference between confidence and cockiness, and I believe they're at the confidence side instead of being the arrogant, cocky kind.
Absolutely, no question about it. That's why the game tonight, even though we think Sidney might compete, when it all boils down to, the Indians are going to win.
Yeah.
I'm predicting 2 to 3 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah, I am too. I think our defense is just way too dominant. As we take a look before we get to the playoff pairings, because those actually were just released about 1 o'clock this afternoon. We are actually filming the show on Thursdays, but we get it out for Fridays. Let's take a look at the rankings. Now, the Division II rankings, this is every team in Division II in all 4 regions, the rankings of the top 10. We got Akron-Hoban at number 1, Toledo Central Catholic at 2, Avon at 3, Westerville South at 4, Massillon-Perry at 5, Cincinnati-Winton Woods at 6, Massillon-Washington at 7, our Piqua Indians are 8th, Hudson is 9th, and Cincinnati-LaSalle is 10th. So the 3 top seeds in our region now, as we look at the pairings, are all ranked in the top 10 in Division II.
And again, I have a different printed version, but I've got the same little dots. Yeah. There are 5 little dots here that say there are some pretty good teams in Region 8.
There are, and I mean, it's going to be a really, really good run here. Again, Winton Woods ended up getting the number 1 seed overall in Region 8, followed by LaSalle at the 2nd seed. Our Piqua Indians did get a 3 seed. Now, earlier in the year, we were talking about the top 4 seeds would get a bye, but because there are 25 teams that elected to go to the playoffs in Region 8, 7 teams, the top 7 seeds, actually get a bye in the first round of the playoffs. So you got Winton Woods at 1, LaSalle at 2, Piqua at 3, Kings is at 4, Turpin is 5, Anderson is 6th, and Stebbins is sitting at number 7. The Troy Trojans got the 9th seed, so just on the outside looking in, but good thing for them, they'll have a home game as they take on Columbus Franklin Heights. Fairborn got in as a 12 seed. They'll take on Cincinnati Winthrop. Winner of that game will take on Turpin. I believe all the MVL teams, Dwayne, actually have a home game except for the one MVL matchup that we get, which is Sidney and West Carrollton, as they'll be playing at Sidney next Friday night, as Sidney got the 10th seed, West Carrollton the 23rd. And the funny thing with that is whoever wins that game gets a rematch against Stebbins in the following week, as Stebbins is the number 7 seed.
And that's one of the things about the whole pairing situation. And somebody told me that as soon as they said, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, there's going to be a good chance that we might meet a regular season opponent, regular season being 6 games, in the playoffs, and that's going to probably happen.
Yeah, it could happen, but as our our route to the state championship looks like. We will take on the winner of 14 seed Harrison and 19 seed Lima Senior on October the 16th. That will be a home game here at Alexander Stadium, and we will also be live streaming that game as well. So be on the lookout for another pregame show in the next coming weeks.
Tell me how it's going to work beyond the first couple of weeks as far home game. Is it always going to be the high seed?
So as we look here on the bracket, it actually says, so the first week, high seed gets the home game. Second week, high seed gets the home game. Third week, better seed gets the home game. And then I believe that goes all the way out to the regional semifinals. So every week will be a home game for the higher seed. Now, Piqua has a chance to at least have 2 home playoff games if Cincinnati LaSalle makes it all the way out the same way that we do, because then we'll play at LaSalle. But yes, so it looks like the home seed will be getting the the higher seed will be getting the home playoff game every week throughout the playoffs.
Have you heard anything about any of the restrictions, if you want to use that, as far as the playoffs are concerned? What about spectators? What about some of the things that we've become accustomed to in the first 6 games? Which of those will prevail as we get to the playoffs? Are you aware of any?
I think that from what I can understand and what I can read, everything is going to carry over from the regular season. The amount of people allowed in the stands, the amount of tickets that are available, I think everything is going to remain the same, which is smart because, you know, the same people are going to be able to come to the games and the same people are going to be able to still watch the games at home. You know, obviously we'll be able to cover every game until I think the state semifinals is when we're restricted from doing a live stream game. So
it looks like we're going to be there, and
yeah.
Again, the Indians are going to. Guys, somebody's going to have to play very well because our Indians are tough. And even though we see Winton Woods, we see LaSalle, we see Kings in there someplace, and I tend to think that we can compete with all of them. However, I want to remind you, since you weren't around when we won the state championship, but in, I think it was 2006, if I recall, a lot of people think the best team we played all year, including the finals against Pickerington, was Cincinnati Turpin. We were at Welcome Stadium, and they had us guessing a little bit until Bill Neese, if I recall correctly, pulled out a fake punt that turned the game away, came around in the last half, and we beat Turpin. They were awfully good. We don't want to count them out. They've had an awfully good tradition over the years.
Yes, they have. And Turpin will have to get through Kings. They'll have to get through Winton Woods. I mean, there's just so many good teams here in the region. And the only way we would meet Turpin is if we both made it to the regional finals because they're on the top part of the bracket. The seeding is exactly the same way as they do for basketball. And I think it worked out pretty decently. I don't agree with us being a 3 seed as opposed to a 2, but that's just how it works.
Yeah, a lot of people thought we ought to have a 1 seed, but when you look at the number of schools, especially the Cincinnati area, you could almost tell that we weren't going to get a 1. But again, I think we're going to be okay. And I think, as you mentioned, some of those teams are going to see a tough opponent earlier than we are going to see a tough opponent. I don't know if tough opponent's the proper term, but by the same token, I think as a draw, I think Piqua did very, very well.
Yes, because it looks like we win our first playoff game, we'll either have Taze Valley, Columbus Briggs, or Cincinnati Anderson, and we know Anderson's a really, really good Cincinnati football
Anderson,
team.
We've played Anderson in the playoffs before. Very good tradition. That would be the first team that would be formidable.
Yeah,
I think.
But the good news is that would be a home game for the Indians as well.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Tonight we've got Sidney and Piqua. I don't know if anybody else believes it, but I just can't believe Sidney's got enough offense to do anything against our defense. I just can't. Nobody's going to make me believe that. No. And again, I don't know whether the weather will have anything to do with it. It's not pleasant out there on this Thursday, but I just don't picture the Yellow Jackets being able to keep up with the Indians.
I don't think so either. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Let's look at some of the games for the final week of the season around the MVL. Tip City travels to Xenia. Troy is at Stebbins. That's going to be a huge game. Butler at Fairborn. Greenville might have their best shot at winning a game at West Carrollton. And then obviously our Piqua Indians against Sidney. Troy Stebbins looks like a really good matchup.
I think that might be an awfully good matchup. Stebbins had the 7th seed, I think you said.
Yep.
And so they've got some personnel. Again, they couldn't compete with us, but none of the others could either. Yeah. But I think that might be the best one. I think Xenia won last Friday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Xenia beat
and again,
Butler.
my disappointment in Tip City, what might that lead to? Who knows?
And Tip City is Division III. I have not looked at their region to see where they are at. Now, let's go ahead and get into tonight's battle for the battered helmet. That ugly helmet that we have sitting in our locker room for the past 2 years. It's the 125th meeting. Piqua has owned the series, 79, 39, and 6. They're on a 2-game winning streak against the Jackets, as the last time Sidney beat us was back in 2017 here, where Piqua failed a 2-point conversion late, ended up losing 34-33. And then the year after that, in 2018, we got our revenge on the road as we beat Sidney in a very defensive battle, 14-12. And then last season, we shut them out here at home, 29-0. This season, the Indians offense has been outscoring their opponents 173-31, and they haven't given up a touchdown, Dwayne, in 3 straight games.
I didn't realize. I meant to look up that particular statistic, and I didn't, and I'm overwhelmed by it. 173-31.
Yes.
Now, that tells you something, and it tells you a lot. Indians are good.
Yeah. We haven't given up. We had a run of 2 straight shutouts. Last week, we only gave up 3 points. So in 3 weeks of the season, the Indians have given up 3 points, which is crazy to think of when we gave up 10 to Troy and 17 to the Butler Aviators. So, I mean, just thinking about it. And here's another great stat. The Indians have the best turnover differential in the entire Miami Valley League at plus 10. We've had five turnovers on offense, but a forced 15, giving us a total of plus 10. This Indians team is very impressive, Dwayne.
Oh, they certainly are. And you mentioned the turnovers, and sometimes the turnovers seem to have more of an impact on the final score than penalties.
Yes.
And seeing this differential, we haven't turned it over. Obviously, we haven't turned it over, and so that gives you another reason to think that the Indians will prevail tonight.
I agree. Well, there are a lot of keys that could be coming into this game. I know you and Brian will be working up some keys before we kick it off tomorrow night. But what are some of the keys that you can see right now before we get out of here?
Well, I think, first of all, you got to get ahead. I think if the Indians could get ahead by 2 or 3 touchdowns, that's going to basically be psychologically damaging to Sidney. So I think basically let's get on the scoreboard early. By the same token, let's not get on the scoreboard on the other side, because even though I think we're a better team to come from behind than Sidney, you never want to come from behind. You never know what's going to happen. Weather might be a factor, but I think we got to get off to a good start. And why shouldn't we? Look at the statistic. The running game is good. The passing game is good. A young fellow by the name of Uhl who's playing quarterback. What a season he's having. Yeah. Again, AJ, there's just nothing else that I can say other than the fact that we got to get off to a start. If this is 21-0 at the half, it's over.
Oh, yeah. I think if it's 14-0 at the halftime, it's over. I mean, Sidney's – it's not about us being able to keep up with Sidney. I think at this point it's going to be about Sidney having to keep up with us. Our offense can score quick. We can hold on to the ball for a long time. But trying to score on this Indians defense or even on special teams, it's dang near impossible.
That is true. Let's talk about one thing that we've mentioned but not enough, our kicking game. Burns has done a terrific job of punting. Yeah. Of course, we know Trombley's got one of the best legs in Miami County, so our kicking game, strong. And again, that's going to be I don't know if it's going to be a factor. In fact, I would say after 5 games, the kicking game hasn't been a factor. We have not had to come from behind in the last second. We have not had any blocked punts. So the kicking game has not had to be as good as they really are.
And the only problems we've had on the kicking game are botched extra point snaps or holds, or that miracle play that Bill Neese probably drew up on the sideline at the end of the first half against Butler. I mean, other than that, we haven't had to use them at all.
AJ, let's face it. The Indians are awfully, awfully good, and they're going to tell us tonight how good they are. And again, but let's be honest now, as we looked at those ratings, and you went through them, and I've got them here, there are 3 or 4 teams on there that are awfully, awfully good.
Yep.
There may be a sleeper or two, because if you had teams that didn't rate as well as some of those that we've got noted that might have played out of division, they might have records that are a little deceiving. I didn't see any in the stuff that I looked at, but you got to be careful of that.
Yeah, I mean, the Indians need to get through this game tonight, think of becoming 1-0, beating Sidney, getting the battered helmet, and then we've got 2 weeks to prepare for our next opponent, whether it's Harrison or whether it is Lima Senior.
Any reason to believe that the week off isn't going to be more good for us than bad? There are some coaches who don't want that week off. I tend to think it's a plus rather than a minus.
I think it's a plus, too. I mean, these kids have been out here busting their butts since the summertime, not knowing if they're even going to get a season. They get a season. Now, I mean, yes, our games that we've been playing, some of them have been a lot more closer than other ones. More times than not, we're blowing people out of the water. But you get bumps and bruises. You need breaks. And I think these kids are more excited to get that bye and say, hey, we're one of the 3 best teams in our region. We deserve this bye. Now let's go out here and prepare and get ready for our next game.
And I think injuries you can't ignore the injuries. We've been rather fortunate, not totally devoid of any. But again, nicks and bruises, 2 weeks might help that too. In fact, it will.
I agree. Well, we want to thank everybody for watching the Indian Nation Station pregame show right here on the Indian Nation Station. It's your home for Piqua Athletics. Our game will be live on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page. You can watch Sidney's live broadcast, but why would you? Because ours is just way better. They even admitted that, by the way, on their broadcast last week. So check out our link. We'll be posting that link tomorrow, probably around 5 o'clock to get it out to everybody. The broadcast will be going live around 6:33, 6:35 to give us that time to catch up with in real time. Dwayne, you'll be on the call with our one and only Brian Gillespie. Look forward to hearing both you guys call the game. Hopefully Wings and Rings is still showing our live stream. They were disappointed we didn't have one last week, so head out there to Wings and Rings wearing your Piqua gear. I'm sure you'll get some free chips and salsa out there as well. Well, Dwayne, it's been one heck of a season. We're down to the last game.
Yes, and again, we only knew there were going to be 6 games. We didn't know at the time it was going to be 6-0. But you know something, AJ? I tend to think after that first game, after we beat our first opponent, we thought to ourselves, we might be awfully good.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, we are. Piqua is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. Well, stay tuned for the game. Coming up next is the Indians travel to Sidney to take on the Sidney Yellow Jackets. For Dwayne Bachman, I'm AJ Ganger saying good night, ladies and gentlemen, and stomp Sidney.